Former U.S. President Donald Trump has been hit with a fourth set of criminal charges by a grand jury in the state of Georgia.
That's right. It's over the alleged efforts by Trump to overturn his 2020 presidential defeat to Joe Biden. Trump at the time claimed that the elections had been rigged.
The indictment brings felony charges against Donald John Trump.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump has until noon next Friday to surrender to authorities in Atlanta, Georgia. He was hit with criminal charges for a fourth time on Monday, when a Georgia grand jury issued a criminal indictment accusing him of attempting to illegally overturn his 2020 election loss to Democrat Joe Biden. The indictment listed Trump and 18 others as defendants, including associates Rudy Giuliani and John Eastman, along with a total of 41 criminal counts. It was all part of a sweeping case brought by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis.
Every individual charged in the indictment is charged with one count of violating Georgia's Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act through participation in a criminal enterprise in Fulton County, Georgia, and elsewhere to accomplish the illegal goal of allowing Donald J. Trump to seize the presidential term of office beginning on January 20th, 21.
Racketeering is used to target members of organized crime groups and carries a penalty of up to 20 years in prison. Lawyers for those named either declined to comment or did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Trump has previously denied any wrongdoing and accused Willis of being politically motivated, criticisms she rejected on Monday.
I make decisions in this office based on the facts and the law. The law is completely nonpartisan. That's how decisions are made in every case. We followed the same process. We look at the facts, we look at the law, and we bring charges.
Arrest warrants have been issued for those indicted by the grand jury. Willis said she is giving them an opportunity to voluntarily surrender by noon on August 25th. The case stems from a phone call in January 2021 in which Trump urged Georgia's top election official to find enough votes to reverse his narrow loss in the state. The official declined to do so. A few days later, Trump's supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol in an unsuccessful attempt to prevent lawmakers from certifying Biden's victory. The indictment also cites a number of crimes that Trump or his associates allegedly committed, including falsely testifying to lawmakers that election fraud had occurred and urging state officials to violate their oaths of office by altering the election results.
Let's speak further then about Donald Trump's legal troubles with Wits University's International Relations Professor John Stremlau. Very good evening to you, Professor. Grateful for your time. So how does this indictment, the fourth against Donald Trump, compare to the other cases against him?
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm very pleased that you're covering this story because anyone, and certainly many of us here in South Africa, are interested in the sustained democracy. And the United States really is at an inflection point, and this case in particular challenges the attempt, as you said in your intro, for Donald Trump to turn over the election result. Zuma, for all of his faults, has never tried to turn over an ANC vote or a national vote. And Trump did. It's unprecedented in American political life. But this case is special for several reasons. One, it is based in Georgia, and it is at the state level, so he can't really pardon himself should he be elected president in 2024, God forbid. But he'd also will be televised with 19 or 18 other defendants, so that you should have a public debate about the nature of his wrongdoing in a way that you won't have in some of the other federal cases. And he's got 4 serious and criminal indictments. And yet this one is really and a circumstance which I think the average voter can relate to.
And just as you said that there are 4 indictments against Donald Trump, some of the issues being ventilated therein, similar to some degree, how much coordination then is there, or should there be, can there be, between the various prosecuting authorities that are now going after him?
Well, each one, as you note, is special, but it's also complementary in that he is accused at the federal level of inciting this violence that so afflicted the Capitol on January 6th in 2021 and attempted to overthrow the counting process. But it's also different from the mishandling of classified, which is the Florida case, and it's different from the New York financial bribery case, that Kosh money case, for his dalliance with a prostitute. Now, what is also interesting about this case, and I'm from Georgia, and in the sense that I voted in Fulton County, Fulton County is the heartbeat of the old old Confederacy. Sherman did his march in the Civil War from Georgia, but it's also the home of Martin Luther King and the Carter Center, where I was working for several years in between stints here in South Africa. And I still vote in Fulton County, and it is changing rapidly. And as noted in your intro, Fani Willis is the first black woman district attorney who's bringing these charges. It is also the case that we voted for Reverend Warnock, who is a successor to Martin Luther King, as the first black senator from Georgia. And so Georgia is reflecting of the transition to getting the United States more to look like South Africa than a more diverse country than the white dominant Christian MAGA group that Trump is appealing to. Trump is mounting a rearguard action, a reactionary, trying to exploit white racism in America.
Right. Just on the level of support that Donald Trump has enjoyed with each indictment, there's been, in fact, an increase, we're hearing, in the amount of money donated to his campaign. He wants to come back as president during next year's election. There's also an increase in his popularity as far as the opinion polls are concerned. How do you explain that in present-day America?
Because America is transforming itself into a majority-minority or minority-majority country where Hispanics and blacks and Indians are enriching the country greatly, but there is a reaction that is still in the majority of white rural voters who nevertheless have also become a minority, but leverage the Electoral College. This is a complicated situation, but can find ways to win in the Electoral College, even though they lost repeatedly the popular vote. And Hillary Clinton won by 3 million votes, and Joe Biden won by 7 million. But if Biden hadn't had the 200,000, and hence the effort by Trump to overturn the Georgia narrow win that he had in Georgia to win in the Electoral College, also, Trump would have had a second term. It is a crisis that has to be resolved, and it can only be resolved by the voters. And the voters are weighted, and at the moment, I think it's not possible to reform the system. But maybe if Joe Biden and the Democrats win in 2024, you will have the political force to go ahead and reform an America and make it more democratic, more like the South African Constitution.
But I wonder how likely, how certain a Biden win is at this point, because no one is able to even tell which of these men will have the upper hand going into 2024. And if Donald Trump were to be convicted, would it even happen within, let's say, the year or so before a U.S. election next year? And if it did happen, what would that mean for the situation, for stability in the country? Because when he lost in 2020, we saw that attack on the U.S. Capitol, and there are fears that we may very much see something on a much larger scale should he be convicted, or even if he just loses the next election.
Well, you are drawing attention to some scary dimensions of the U.S. politics right now, because the right wing, the conservatives, are much more armed and more prone to violence than the Democrats have been historically, or right now, certainly. And the forecast for the 2024 is a fool's errand right now, because a lot can happen between now and Election Day. And as Harry Truman famously said, the only poll that really matters is the voting that occurs on Election Day. And there will be a lot of foreign intervention, a lot of disinformation, a lot of debates in the social media that will play in uncertain ways. On the other hand, I take some comfort from the 7 million votes that Biden mustered in 2020 to win, and that I think that the kind of support that is grassroots and exemplified by the changing situation in Georgia and Fulton County does speak to a majority-minority country that is becoming more diverse and more responsible democratically than has been the case historically.
Professor John Stremlau, thank you so much for speaking to us tonight on News at Prime.